me ask you a question. Tony versus Khabib. Who wins? How? Reasonable question by me. I mean, that's a fight that's coming up. Of course, we're talking about who wins and how, and then we have debates, and then they got to go in there and fight, and you either get to tell your buddies you were right, or they get to shove it in your face. Okay, I understand. But let me ask you a different question. The question that you just answered would be under the 5-round system of the unified rules that they're going to compete in. I get that. But let's have a little fun. Tony versus Khabib. UFC 1. So you do not have a break in the rounds. As a matter of fact, you don't even have time limits. Essentially, you do have the same rules. No biting, no eye gouging. I mean, essentially, you have the same rules. So you're going to weigh them in, okay? But as far as once they get in there, they are going to go one long match until somebody quits. Don't forget, that's what UFC 1 really was. It was an I quit match. Now, Big John McCarthy stepped in and said, like hell it is. Big John pulled him right and said, this is a TKO. And John he told me this story one time, and so I'll get you 90% there. I might have forgot a detail or two. But Big John even got a finger in the chest from Rorion Gracie over that. So what are you doing? You stopped a fight. Don't ever stop a fight. Let it go. John said, like hell I will. I'm going to protect these guys at all times. They're going to come out. They're going to handle their business, but everybody goes home. And it was a back and forth. It was a battle that Big John won, and Rorion was the boss. Rorion was the owner. John said, not going to happen that way. But I only offer that for you because essentially it was an I quit match. You either go to sleep, you're unconscious, or it's a big game of mercy. You tap out. Those are your only two ways. Those matches on average were about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. They were pretty quick. But as the UFC progressed, but it was the same rules. This was UFC 3 or 4. You guys will remember when Shamrock and Hoist fought. Ken and Hoist. And again, it was a no time limit. These guys were supposed to figure it out, but everything that we'd ever seen before was only a couple of minutes at a time. This will be no problem. Well, these boys get in there. It's 22 minutes, 23 minutes, 24 minutes is going by. The leader, Art Davie and Rorion are looking around going, we got a pay-per-view window. We got to get off the air. There has to be conclusion to this contest. So even though we told everybody who's watching, everybody who bought it, and the two participants that there is no time limit, there's now a time limit. Because we didn't know what we didn't know. Okay, that's fine. But somebody then yells through the cage to Big John at 30 minutes, we are stopping this and calling it a draw. So John gets the signal, relays it to the athletes, and essentially that's how we came up with this time frame of about 30 minutes. That is essentially how it happened. That is how title fights, when you got into rounds, okay, it's going to be 5-minute rounds with a minute break. Essentially, everybody looks around and goes, well, that 30 minutes was a good number. Okay, great. But what if Tony and Khabib fight under that rule set and there is no break in the contest? Now, there is something in the world of wrestling known as an I quit match. And it only takes place in the practice room. And one of the greatest I quit matches of all time was Olympian Matt Lindland versus a guy who Matt Lindland trained, who went on to become a former or future Olympian himself, Brad Varing. Two Olympians at two different cycles go in the back room of a car dealership, which was the original Team Quest gym. They shake hands, and the only agreement they have is we are going to go as hard as we can until one of us says, I've had enough. An hour and 15 minutes later, nobody had said it, but there was a break in the action. They both looked at each other, they shook hands, and they walked out. But I only share with you, there's many ways to contest these things. If I was to go back to Gordon Ryan versus Felipe, when they did their grappling match, they set up a camera, and you guys are going to go till somebody taps the end. No points, no time, no anything. Nothing changes. You are the only match that is going to take place on this card today. Feel free to go for 10 seconds or feel free to go for 10 days. And it was a marathon match. It didn't reach an hour, but it was right in there. 44, 45 minutes seems to be what comes off the top of my head. I'm just saying, just for fun. Because I do wonder if that would change your opinion of the outcome. I do. In many ways, I think it's going to be hard for us to believe that Khabib is going to tap out Tony. I think that's hard for us. I think for most of us, even us jiu-jitsu lovers, realize that's probably not a great bet to think that Tony is going to submit Khabib. I just don't know that I would. I don't know that many of us can close our eyes and believe that's going to happen as much as Khabib is going to feint submissions to then go to strikes. Tony is going to be looking for submission while crashing elbows in, and particularly that comes down because of it's 5 minutes. Breaking the fight is a great disadvantage to the guy who just wants to land a submission. It's completely submission oriented and submission game heavy. It can be done, but it's a disadvantage. So would your opinion of who is going to win this contest change if the rules of UFC 1 were the rules, particularly the round and time system, if they were going to be changed retroactively to the way it was done the first time it was ever done? A lot of words there. But I think it's an interesting question. I'd love to hear your answer.